The last day of summer, chapter 31. Questions, lots of them. She'd said, "You were born because Petey missed an opportunity? Shouldn't there be a bunch of missed opportunities then? Like millions?" "I believe I am unique." He seemed to be bragging and defensive at the same time. "A 1 in a billion, no, trillion anomaly born from the oddness that saturates your county." "But there could be others?" she pushed. "I doubt that." "You don't know for sure? What if you have brothers and sisters or cousins like me and Otto?" "I don't have cousins." "You might, though." "I do not." She jerked at the snap in Mr. Flux's voice, but recovered quickly and moved on to his other questions. "Okay. One time me and Otto were playing basketball at the park. I had the opportunity to hit the game winner, but I passed to Otto instead, and we lost. So I could have a Mr. Flux out there mad at me for not using my sweet crossover to win?" "No." "Okay. One time I missed an opportunity to stick Otto's hand in a bowl of warm water while he was sleeping. Since I didn't do that, there could be an Otto missed opportunity walking around with permanently wet sheets." "Enough!" Mr. Flux roared. "I didn't mean for you to actually ask questions. I thought you'd nod and look grim with understanding. My point was to tell you how I got here and why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's all. I'm not a missed opportunity tour guide." "I still don't understand. Freezing time so no one else misses an opportunity. Is that you being helpful or you being vengeful?" Mr. Flux's jaw clenched. He was clearly frustrated by Sheed's line of questioning. Sheed continued, "Sorry, I'm just thinking if people miss opportunities all the time, why is yours so special that you gotta turn all bitter and villainous instead of just moving on like everyone else?" Mr. Flux exploded. "Because I was trapped with these idiots." He swept an arm towards the clock watchers, who looked hurt and offended but kept quiet otherwise. "Whatever strange magic infects this county you live in made my birth possible, but it also trapped me. I couldn't leave. Every time I tried to venture into the world beyond Logan, I'd hit an invisible wall at the county border." She'd said, "You were like a bird that flies into really clear glass?" Flux scowled. "An apt analogy, Rashid. Yes, I was a bird trapped behind glass, except humans can see birds and help birds if they so choose. Humans can't see me because I was in the clockwatcher dimension, no matter how much I screamed and begged." A chill raised goosebumps on Sheed's arms as the horror of what Mr. Flux described sank in. "You were alone like that for years? Like a ghost?" "Oh, no." Mr. Flux shook his head with such extreme force it twisted his neck like a wet dish rag. "I wasn't totally alone. The clock watchers were there, also invisible to the human eye, though most were too busy with their repetitive routines to concern themselves with me while I screamed myself mad. So many of them ignored me in my torment. Father Time, the golden hours. They had tasks way more important than a poor trapped soul like me. So one day I stopped screaming and started thinking, observing. I began to understand that the clock watchers interacted with the human dimension all the time, but in slavish ways that reflected their unique natures. Maybe, just maybe, I could interact with the human world too, and make everyone in this town pay for abandoning me with the help of the right clock watcher. That's when you found Witching Hour and you got her to build your camera and make it so we could see you," She'd said, knowing the rest. "You tricked us into doing your dirty work." "Ah, yes. Frozen time changes the rules in both dimensions. It means the residents of Fry can never let another opportunity slip by, and I can now roam freely without Witching Hour's aid." Mr. Flux's applauded lightly. "You Austin boys are so helpful." "Why yap all this to me?" Mr. Flux clasped his hands behind his back, pinched his lips together, took on a troubled posture. "It seems I made a miscalculation. I did not think very far beyond my vengeance. With my goal achieved, what now? I have this camera. I could leave Logan County, but where would I go? What should I do?" She hadn't considered those questions. Now that they're in his head, the possible answers were quite frightening. "I could go to more towns, take more pictures, prevent more people from missing opportunities, but this is lonely work, and I've been alone for far too long. Certainly my loyal clock watchers are a useful army. Not very intellectually stimulating, though. Isn't that right? Quitting time." A stout, grouchy clock watcher in a hard hat and a sleeveless flannel shirt, who carried an aluminum lunch pail, said, "I'm knocking off for the day." Then she left. Mr. Flux said, "She'll be back in a moment, then she'll do that again, over and over. Do you see my problem?" Sheed's lip curled and an eyebrow arched. "You want me and Otto to work with you?" "For me," Mr. Flux clarified, waving one finger. "For me. Also, not you and Octavius. You." She did not know how to respond to that. Mr. Flux said, I told you I could see the people in this county when I was in my spectre-like state. You were no exception. What I observed, well, it was downright criminal. Those adventures you two go on, you're the heart of your team, Rashid. He's the brain. No offense to your smarts. I respect both. He does not. He's often rude to you, dismissive, haughty even. She'd mumbled, I don't know what haughty means, and I will never make you feel bad about that. Would Octavius? She'd had never been embarrassed about not knowing stuff. That's what learning is for. Yet he remembered times he'd made a confession to Otto, and his cousin would sneer and scoff and say things like, How do you not know that? As if not having his brain was a crime. I've seen you under pressure, Rashid. You're good in a clutch. Instinct is your friend. That sort of leadership would be valuable in my new adventures. I have won. Even if you don't realize it yet, you will. This is your latest opportunity. Rashid, don't let it be your last. Mr. Flux crouched, aimed the camera, and peered at Sheed through the viewfinder. What do you think of my proposal? She did not say yes. He did not say no either. He thought long and hard. What would it be like to not have Otto breathing down my neck from now on? Not have him acting like I don't know what I'm talking about, or that I'm only good for stuff like lifting his 2-ton backpack. What would it be like to be something more than a legendary Austin boy? That he couldn't outright dismiss Mr. Flux's opportunity, in spite of the consequences for Fry, Logan County, and beyond, said a lot. Chapter 32. A condo? On Sheed's bike, intent on getting back to Petey's as fast as his legs could manage, Otto made it only a few yards before a shiny flicker caught his eye. Coasting closer, he recognized familiar, glistening footprints. They weren't fresh, and the nearest one faded right before his eyes. Pumping the pedals, he pushed himself to keep up with the vanishing trail all through downtown Fry, finally ending at the door of the Nice Dream ice cream shop. Otto dropped the bike at the curb and pushed through the shop's door. The clock watchers sitting at the stools, at tables, and in booths were sullen, hunched-over bowls of ice cream. Chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, and other flavors smeared their mouths as they shoveled down spoonful after spoonful, not even bothering to acknowledge his presence. On 2 stools, with elbows propped on the countertop, were the golden hours, looking sad as sad could be, their bowls piled high with no fewer than 8 unmelting scoops each. A.M., Otto said. P.M., what's going on here? Only A.M. glanced over. P.M. kept shoveling ice cream. Guys, Otto pleaded. Mr. Flux has won, A.M. said. P.M. spoke, though his words were distorted by the spoon in his mouth. Our siblings have joined that monster. Otto took a second to translate. Our siblings have joined that monster. A.M. said, that monster made an offer that many of our brethren couldn't refuse. Clock watchers need something to do. When time is frozen, there aren't many options. You two aren't thinking of joining Mr. Flux, are you? Goodness, no. Have you seen his suit? Not even our skills are enough to help that situation. That was good to hear, though not quite good enough. Scanning the room, Otto saw only a fraction of the clock watchers that he'd first encountered at the library. More clock watchers had attacked them in Petey's backyard than were in the shop now, though he did see old, wise Father Time in the corner booth next to a less than energetic Game Time. Father Time had toffee chips in his beard. The day is lost, said P.M., shoving ice cream into his mouth. Otto shook his head. No, the day is not lost. My brother is right, said A.M. She stared glumly at Otto, and even her bright yellow skirt seemed duller somehow. What could Otto say? The truth was he felt the same way. Everything that could go wrong had. And who was to blame? Me, Otto thought. He just couldn't figure out if he meant current him or Time Star him. Either way, he could not give up the day. I know you guys like to move around a lot, but can you promise that you'll keep all these clock watchers here until I get back? Depends, said A.M. What will we be waiting on? A plan, Otto said. P.M. shrugged. As long as there's ice cream, we'll be here. It wasn't the most enthusiastic answer, but Otto took it, rushing from the shop and grabbing the bike again. By the time he reached Petey's, he was gasping, and it felt like his heart might pump out of his chest. The way the day had been going, he had expected to find Petey's house deserted, forcing him into another search mission to find Time Star. For once, his luck held. Petey and Time Star were still in the basement workshop, discussing their own futile strategies, looking as depressed as the ice cream shop clock watchers. Otto, Petey said, happy to see him. Then correcting himself, younger Otto. Time Star said, I'm happy you came back. I was worried. Where's Sheed? Otto asked. Time Star said, "We were just discussing that. We were going to question Bedtime, the frozen clock watcher in the backyard, to see if she could tell us." "No," Otto corrected him, scared to go down this path, but needing to. "Not my sheet, your sheet. If you're a time-traveling adventurer, where's your partner?" "He's on a separate adventure right now." Time Star's eyes flicked left, and he frowned. The liar tick. Otto stomped forward, jabbing his finger at Time Star. "You're not telling the truth. You did a lying tick thing that Wiki Ellison told me about, and I can't figure why you'd lie about future sheep unless something bad happens to him. You better tell me where my cousin is right now." Otto screamed. "Tell me." Time Star placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Let's talk outside." Otto ran from the basement into the backyard and sat with his back against Mrs. Thunkle's biggest flower pot, cupping his face in his hands and crying out his fear. He knew he would not get rid of it all. Time Star emerged from the basement and sat close, side by side, the two of him. "You don't recognize the name Time Star, do you?" he asked. Otto shook his head. "Should I? A lot of things are fuzzy to me now, but I'm certain that we're a few months from when you and she think it up. Time Star is a superhero in the made-up comic book world you two like to draw. Your version has cooler clothes than what I'm wearing, though." "Your clothes look cool to me," Otto sniveled. "That's because you don't live where I live." He seemed to think that over. Yet. "What happened to your sheep?" Otto was finally ready to hear if his most recent and horrible deduction was true. "Did he die?" Time Star took several long, hard breaths before answering. "Yes." Otto began crying again. "How? Is it one of our adventures? Do we run into something we can't handle? I'm not sure I should tell you anything more. I have to be careful not to change things about the past. I know." In an emotional explosion that was as surprising as any of today's weirdness, Otto hauled off and hit Time Star, an adult, in the chest. Hard enough to hurt his hand. "Why do you keep saying that? Stop saying that." Time Star winced, but didn't try to defend himself. Otto hit him again and again, creating a hollow drumbeat with every strike. "Why are you here if you can't help Sheed not die? What good are you?" Otto pounded on Time Star until he was tired and had to catch his breath. Time Star massaged the areas where he had been struck, but showed no anger. "Talk about beating myself up. Don't make jokes. I'm sorry, man. It's not some Logan County monster, nothing like that. He's sick. Or he will be." Otto sprang to his feet. "That's it? Then we'll tell Grandma and she'll get a doctor to fix him before he gets bad?" Time Star was shaking his head from the moment Otto got to his feet. "It's not that simple. Some illness doctors can't fix. Some illnesses. And you're not telling Grandma anything." Time Star had an edge in his voice then. "Not one word. She deserves to have the rest of her time thinking both her sons will be fine, Otto." That hit like a bucket of cold water. The rest of her time? Grandma dies too? "Otto, of course, eventually." Time Star slapped a hand behind his right ear, slowly rose, and retreated into Mrs. Thunkle's garden. "I knew I shouldn't have told you anything." Otto stomped after him. "Too late for that, so you might as well keep flapping those gums." Time Star spun back towards him, head cocked. "Flapping those gums? Dude, you sound so much like her." Her was Grandma. That was one of her favorite sayings. Thinking about her hurt now. It never had before. "It's a sickness that's in his blood," Time Star said. "His cells. There's no cure." "There has to be." "There isn't." "Not even in your time? Where you come from?" Time Star shook his head. "Even if there was, there are just certain things you don't do. Rules you don't break without consequences. You start messing with the laws of nature too much, you become like Mr. Flux, messing things up so bad there's no telling if it can ever go back to normal." Otto was mad again, moving between sadness and anger. This fast and hard would give him whiplash, but he couldn't stop. There's no such thing as normal in Logan County. How could you forget that? You'd be surprised how much you forget when you grow up. Stuff that used to be an adventure becomes scary. You worry about getting hurt and not being able to go to work. "Are you a soldier?" Otto recognized how hopeful he sounded. "Or a pilot?" "No, I'm neither of those things. I'm not going to tell you details, but I sit at a desk most of the day. I look at a monitor." "That sounds boring." "It is. Want to hear something more boring? We have a condo." Otto didn't know what to say about that. He returned to the more important topic. "Why did you come here? What's the point? Sneak around like a creeper, then disappear. All you did was mess stuff up, and you can't help Sheed. Why bother?" "I just wanted to see him again." "All right." No, it's not. Because you're telling me I'm going to give up, and then I become a boring desk slug without Grandma or she. That's not the way it's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to be a legend with my cousin, not live in a condo, not be you. Time Star wrapped his arms around Otto. At first, Otto tried to wrench away, fighting, punching, kicking. Time Star didn't let go. He held on to his kid self until Otto buried his face in the time traveler's chest and cried some more, no longer embarrassed. Why should he be when grown-up him, who'd broken the laws of physics and the future to glimpse his beloved cousin one more time, was crying too?